It's one of the biggest questions in business. How does a plan on a piece of paper, a strategy doc, actually turn into real hard dollars for a company? It can feel like a black box. Well, we're going to walk through a really powerful framework for measuring exactly that journey. And all of this is built on the incredible work of Alexander Chernev in his book, Strategic Brand Management. It gives you a clear roadmap to follow.
So the core idea here is to think of this as a chain reaction, right? Like a set of dominoes. It all kicks off with the company's branding plan. If that plan is executed properly, it's supposed to create a very specific image in the customer's mind. And if that image resonates, it gives that customer real value, which then drives how they behave, what they buy, how often they buy it, and finally, that behavior is what translates into financial value or equity for the company. Every single link has to connect for it to work.
Exactly. And that means the very first step, the first question we have to ask, has absolutely nothing to do with the customer. And that feels a little weird for most marketers, right? It's a totally internal question. Did we actually do the thing we said we were going to do? So let's start right there at the very beginning with executing the plan.
This is just the fundamental audit. And honestly, it's where so many strategies just fall apart. Before you can even dream of measuring what a customer thinks, you have to measure what you actually did. You're looking for the gaps between the brilliant idea in the boardroom and what's actually happening out there in the real world. You'd be surprised how often those two things don't match up.
And this breaks that audit down perfectly into two parts. Over on the left, you've got brand design. That's the what. Are our identifiers, the logo, the colors, the packaging, looking the same everywhere? Are our retail partners using the right signage? Simple stuff, but crucial. Then on the right, you have brand communication. That's the how. Okay, maybe the design is perfect, but did anyone actually see it? Here we're talking about the hard numbers, impressions, ad views, how many people showed up to our event. Because you can have the most beautiful design in the world, but if it's stuck in a closet, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so let's fast forward. Let's assume the plan went off without a hitch. The design was consistent, the message got out there. Now, we can finally turn our attention away from ourselves and over to the customer. What picture did all of our hard work actually paint inside their heads?
Right, and this definition is so important. A brand image isn't what your PowerPoint deck says it is. It's the messy, real-world collection of thoughts, feelings, memories, and ideas that a person has when they hear your company's name. This is where your strategy hits the pavement and meets reality.
And when we start measuring that image, the first step is awareness. But this slide shows there are two very different levels. Recognition, on the right, is a pretty low bar. You show someone a logo and ask, "Hey, have you seen this before?" It's just about familiarity. But recall, on the left, that's the gold standard. That's when you ask someone, when you think of an electric car, what brands pop into your head? If they name you without any prompting, it means you own a little piece of real estate in their brain for that category. That's powerful.
But just being aware of a brand isn't enough. The real meat of the brand image is in the associations, and we can break those down into these 4 dimensions. First, type. What actual ideas pop up? For a brand like Volvo, it's probably safety. Second, breadth. How many different ideas are there? A brand like Disney has incredible breadth. Movies, theme parks, cruises, childhood. Third, valence. Are the associations good or bad? Just think about the massive negative valence that Wells Fargo had to deal with after their scandals. And finally, strength. How tight is that connection? When I say search engine, you say Google. That link is practically unbreakable. That's strength.
All right, so we've confirmed people know who we are, and they have all these associations floating around in their head. The next domino in the chain is the big "so what" question. What does that brand image actually do for the customer? What benefit, tangible or not, do they get from it? What is it actually worth to them personally?
And that value usually falls into one of these 3 buckets. You've got functional value. The brand helps me identify a quality product, it performs well. Then there's monetary value. This brand saves me money, or it's a status symbol that's worth paying more for. But so often the real magic, the thing that creates diehard fans, is the psychological value. How does this brand make me feel about myself? And that's the hardest one to get to.
And this is where it gets really, really cool. To dig into that deep psychological stuff, there's this amazing research technique called benefit laddering. It sounds complex, but it's really just a clever way of interviewing someone to climb from a simple product feature all the way up to a core life value. It's like being a brand detective.
Yeah, let's walk through the classic example with Harley-Davidson. An interviewer might ask a writer, "What's the best thing about your Harley?" And the writer might start with something really concrete, a basic product attribute, the sound. That's the first rung of our ladder. Simple, tangible. So the interviewer just follows up with, okay, and why is that sound important to you? The writer might say, well, because it's instantly recognizable. See? We just climbed up a level. We've connected that physical attribute, the sound, to a clear functional benefit. It sets the bike apart from everything else on the road. And we just keep climbing. The next question is, and why is being recognizable important? The writer might have to think for a second, and then they say, because it makes me feel different. And there it is. That's the leap. We've gone from a function of the product to a pure emotion for the person. We're getting so close to the real reason they bought the bike.
And for the final step, why is feeling different important to you? And the answer that comes back is the jackpot, because it makes me feel free. And boom, there it is. We have laddered all the way from the rumble of an engine up to a core human value, freedom. That is why people are loyal to Harley-Davidson. It's a feeling you would never uncover if you just asked them about the bike's specs. Understanding that is unbelievably powerful, but it's still not the end of the line. Now we get to the part where we connect that incredible feeling of freedom back to the business's bottom line. How does that value actually change the way a customer behaves? And ultimately, how does that behavior create cold, hard financial value, brand equity for the company?
This is the proof, right? This is where the rubber meets the road. Does that feeling of freedom make someone choose a Harley over another cheaper bike? That's a purchase decision. Does it make them want to ride more, buying more gear and getting more service? That's usage frequency. And maybe most importantly, does it turn them into a walking advertisement who tells all their friends they have to get a Harley too? That advocacy is pure gold. It's the direct result of the value we just uncovered.
And this brings us to the final destination. All of that behavior, the loyal purchases, the advocacy, the repeat business, it all has a direct and measurable financial impact. That total value, the premium the market is willing to pay just for your brand name on a product, that is brand equity. It's the bottom line, quantifiable result of every single step that came before it in this chain. So what this framework really gives us is a complete story, from a plan on a whiteboard all the way to a number on a balance sheet. It forces us to look past our own actions, the campaigns we ran, the designs we approved, and to really rigorously measure the entire chain of effects that we set in motion. So the question to leave with is this: it's not enough to measure what you did, you have to measure what you truly created.